Hi, Liz.
Hey,
It's finally good to actually do this. Thank you for welcoming us into your beautiful house.
thanks for being here.
Yeah. So, something I'm really curious about, and when the first time I met you was on a potentially like branded commercial thing, and you're doing like production design, and that's kind of what I thought you did. But then I recognized that you do so many other things, and that's just like a small bit of what you do. What do you think something that people get wrong about starting a business or a creative business is?
That's a good question. Well, I guess we can piggyback off of that.
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes people feel like they have to be one thing, like go really hard in one direction, and I think there's strength and power in that too. But um, I also think like I've been able to pivot and grow my business and sustain my business for almost 10 years. I'm like on the nine and a half years now, because I've been able to wear different hats and
Mhm.
pivot. So I feel like people sometimes think they have to have everything figured out and they know exactly what they're doing to start. And I don't agree with that at all.
Mhm.
I would say like that's the opposite of what I did.
Right.
I kind of just was like, I know I want to have a business. I know I want to work for myself and I'll do whatever it takes to do that. And then over time, I started to realize like what really worked and what felt the best.
What inspired you to kind of start your own business? Was it based on like family background? Did you come from a family of entrepreneurs, or was there just something maybe in your history of working for somebody where like, that's not me?
Yeah. So it started off the latter. I started my first job. I was working full time for North Bowl, which is a bowling alley,
Nice.
um, as in their events department. And I started there. I was like first salary, first time having my like insurance,
Mm.
the big girl stuff, and it was really good at first. And I like made my own role there. It was so nice to have consistency for the first time in my life. I didn't grow up with a ton of consistency as
Mm.
far as like finance was involved. I so that felt good and it felt safe in that way. But then over time, I just started to feel like so stuck.
Right.
And I remember sitting. It was like August or maybe July, and I was like looking out the window and I'm like watching all these people just walk their
Mm.
dogs, like enjoy the day. And I was sitting there and I'm like, I can't do this much longer. And I literally quit like a month later. Um, and it didn't make sense financially for me at all. I had no savings. I had really nothing
Any
to go
backup?
off
No
of.
backup plan,
No
nothing
backup plan. And actually at the time, it was Craigslist was still like being used often. And
for
I had,
jobs?
yeah, for like
Interesting.
job listings
Mm.
and things. So I remember it was July that I first started to like really seriously think about quitting. And then August came and I had three different people send me the same job listing for this social media job. That was $400 a month.
Okay. It's a start.
And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like, and I believe in God. So I was like, I felt like that was 100% like divine timing. And
Mm.
why would three people send me the exact same listing if it wasn't for me? So I went, interviewed for it and I got it. And again, it was $400 a month, but I'm like, whatever, I'm going to do this.
For people to send you that Craigslist listing, did you have a background in social media at that time?
Yeah. So it was kind of right when brands started to have social media pages and everyone was creating them. And I created North Poles and South Pole. They
Mm.
opened a second venue while I was with them. So I was running their social media pages, but by no means was I like, like a guru with
Right.
social media. But I knew enough about it. And I was like using it for myself. So when the listing came, I must have at the time been promoting that about what I do,
Mm.
right? Um, so yeah, I ended up getting the job and quit North Pole. And then they ended up hiring me back like 2 months later
Mm.
for pretty much almost the same amount that I was making on salary. So then I had like a full salary to live off of, but I was freelance, which just gave me so much more time to try other things on. Um, and then the second question that you had said was if I had entrepreneurial
Yeah.
background. I don't think I grew up knowing like as much or realizing how much I actually did have an
Mm.
entrepreneurial background
It's
in
a
my
weird
family
word.
members. Yeah.
Yeah. I always have trouble saying it.
um, So my mom, well, I'll go to my grandparents. My grandparents owned restaurants.
Okay.
My grandfather was born in Italy, but came here when he was like 1 years old.
Hmm.
So his family, they had lines of restaurants. Like there was the summer one, there was a bar called the Keg, tons of restaurants. He was also like a stonemason. He was an artist. He was a
Wow.
painter. When he got older, he would just like build these stone like sculptures. He was always creating, and yeah, he was super creative, and also just always doing his own thing. Like he sustained our whole family really
Did you have a
through
good
these.
relationship with him growing up?
Yeah, my grandfather really was like my father figure
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. Um, and then my father was an immigrant to the US, and he came when he was a teenager, and he ended up like totally broken English. Like even he passed away, but like his English was not good.
Mm.
um, and he owned like three karate schools.
Interesting
Yeah,
karate.
three karate
Yeah.
schools at like the peak of his career, which I think like looking back on it, that's so incredible.
Mm.
Um, to teach karate and own three schools, and it was Japanese karate also, which is crazy because he's
Mm.
Italian.
Right.
And he was really successful in that way. So I had that, and then my mom, being a single mom, just like she owned a cleaning business, and then she wanted to be an interior designer, and she's incredible. She helped me with this house. She helps
Amazing.
me with everything, but just totally went out and like became one on her own,
Mm.
self-taught with two girls, like, and like made a life for us through
Wow.
that. So
I guess looking back on it, have you ever kind of thought about the trajectory of maybe your path in this creative space and your relationship maybe with your grandfather and how that influenced your spark to pursue something in a creative field?
yeah, I mean, it's 100% why I did it. I
Mm.
think like my whole family is very creative. Like even my grandmother, who I didn't even mention yet, she was the head chef of our restaurant. So like
Sweet.
she was creating the menus, and
Mm.
I mean like looking from the outside, I don't think I realized how creative she also was. Like it wasn't as obvious as like my grandfather who
Yeah.
painted, and like he would take anything and make art out of it. It'd be
Mm.
like, especially as he got older and he couldn't get up as much, if he had
Right.
like a cardboard box, he'd end up like cutting it,
Making
painting
something.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
and building something out of it.
Mm.
So um, now, just like in hindsight and seeing like where my career has landed, I totally see it. But like through the process, I don't think I was like, I'm gonna do this because
Right.
my family did. I think it was there in the background, but
Mm.
it wasn't like, I don't know if it was the driver.
Mm.
But now looking back, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I was around it my whole life, so it makes sense.
I think there's something that I think about often is like as we go through life and like finding our self as a human and our career, we sometimes forget or don't even realize that moments are actually impacting us at a certain point or will leave like a lasting impression on what our future might be. I guess, have, can you kind of recognize any of those moments where you maybe took a risk or something in the moment that you didn't think was going to be substantial, but actually made a really big impact or change in your life or your career? Was it quitting that bowling job or something similar that maybe was nominal, but ended up being very impactful?
Yeah, I feel like that's my whole life, to be honest.
Mhm.
Like, I don't take anything lightly. I think that's like a blessing and a curse sometimes.
Right.
But I really, like I said, I believe that like everything leads to the next step. Like, and it can be so small. Like, I don't know, meeting someone at a Halloween party. Like I met
Yeah.
that's truly like actually thinking about it. That's like a funny one. Like I dressed up as the three blind mice in college and I went to this random Halloween party and met the girl whose house it was, and
Mm.
um we clicked. I ended up interning with her, and then down the line the reason I got that social media job, which changed my life, was because she was on my recommendation list at
Mm.
the bottom, and the client knew her. So it's like weird.
Yeah.
It's so I feel like there's so many weird and big and small moments
Mm.
that have led, I don't know, that make up the whole, I guess.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's so many, I would say.
Mm.
I don't feel like there's just one that happened that like was the break or something, but um the quitting of the job I think was a leap that was like really risky. Obviously I had no money, and if I told anyone around me they would have been like, you're crazy, but I
Right.
just did it anyway. Um and maybe there's then down the line, I did other things
Hmm.
too that were,
I think risk is something that is really interesting to talk about because as an entrepreneur, someone that's I guess pursuing a creative path, you have to kind of understand what your risk tolerance is and like how much you're
yeah.
willing to push that. Because you said before you came from maybe something that wasn't so stable. So the bowling was stable for you and
Hmm.
then you quit. So then you started to maybe pursue something that was a little bit unstable again. Was that like, was that, what level of risk was that for you?
Oh
How
my God.
nervous were you kind of pursuing that?
Yeah. I was, it's, I talk about it now like as if it wasn't a big deal, I
Mm,
think, but it was so scary. I
mm,
was freaking out for like years. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I still, Katie knows, like, there's days when I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing? This is
mm,
crazy. Like, the whole thing is crazy. I feel like my life feels like a risk a lot. And so it's true. It's like managing that, right?
yeah.
Like, some days I wake up and I have to manage the stress of not knowing like what the next big job's going to be or
Mm,
what the year's going to look like financially. I'm not the same. I don't have the same business model that other people do where they're like, all right, we know we have this amount of clients. Fiscally, we're going to hit this point because we're
mhm,
selling this. Like it's not like that for me. So um, every day feels like a risk, right?
right.
But that's honestly what I think this is all about is that I'm able to sit in that discomfort,
Mm,
and it's not always easy, but it is continual for sure. Like
right.
even just like hitting career goals, like it never feels easy. It's always scary. It
Yeah.
always comes with some type of stress or anxiety, and I do think that that's a big point in going out and being an independent. Is like having the guts and
It's courage.
courage. That's the word. That's a better being brave,
Yeah, absolutely.
trusting.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that when I started, I was really almost like, I'm trying to think of the word. Like there has to be like an undeniable self-belief that you're going to succeed in something. And it's almost like potential delusion,
Yeah, for sure, for
right?
sure.
Is there, have you kind of experienced that as well? And do you think that that is
Oh my
like
God.
normal for, or like you kind of have to have that in order to pursue something that isn't socially normal,
Yeah,
perhaps?
100%. Yeah. I had no business doing most of the work that I did
Mm,
at all. And I just said yes cuz like you said, I just had to believe that I could and I knew that I wanted it so bad that I'd have to try, and if I failed, then I did it and
right.
I'd do it again and I'd do it better.
Mm,
Um yeah. It is delusion in a way, but I think you do need it and is it delusion or is it like we are just creating our own lives, right? Like everything that we do, we're creating it. So you have to believe it. You have to be your number one believer,
absolutely.
right?
Mhm,
For other people to believe you too.
right. I think another element is that stops a lot of people potentially is fear and the idea of failing at something and looking um,
Oh,
embarrassed potentially socially or within your family. When you first started and kind of, maybe went through certain moments of failure or things that you weren't necessarily proud of or you didn't succeed in something, what helped you kind of get back on it, try again, and keep going in order to kind of get to, a point where people looked around, like people were looking at you like, oh, she's actually doing something.
yeah. I still have that fear all the time.
Mm,
Um, praying, praying about it. I'd pray about it and be like, if this is meant for me, like, even though I failed at it, like, I'm going to do it again. And like, I don't know. I always kind of ask for some sort of like, I don't know, guidance to keep going, I guess, but also failing, like people want to connect with each other, right? And we all fail. So I think like it can feel so embarrassing, but also it's human,
hmm.
right? And like to me, the people I connect with the most are people who fail and own
Yeah.
it and are just themselves. And I just feel like if people they're gonna love you, they're gonna love you even through failure, right? Like even clients, like I have failed in my own eyes at a job, and then just talk to like the client or the coworker, I don't know, whoever I'm collaborating with, and been like, this is not my best work, and I know it, but I want to do this again. and I want to do it better. And I think taking ownership over failures is really important, and something like I've learned that instead of being afraid and embarrassed of it, like to own it
Right.
and then like use it as a next step to
Yeah.
get better.
Can you go a little bit deeper into ownership and kind of just overcoming the idea of you failing and maybe putting the blame on someone else, or also the idea of ownership and leading a team?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think that that's a mistake I made in the beginning a lot. In that, even just like my own train of thought, like I'd want to go to blame something or
Right.
somebody else.
Hmm.
Like that didn't get here in time. They didn't give me enough money.
It's like deflecting
Yeah.
everything.
But honestly, like even like say you're mad that a client didn't give you enough money. Well, I should have set expectations within that budget.
Mm.
I shouldn't have set expectations above it. If, that was my job to then communicate to them what was possible. I feel like I deal with that and learn and try to take ownership all the time
Mhm.
still. Um, it's can feel really weird at first because your ego doesn't want to do that,
Yeah,
but it feels so much better, I think, in the long run when you're just like really honest with someone and
absolutely.
like just say like, I thought I could and I couldn't, or
Mhm.
I want to make this right. And I just try to always over communicate now, as like in the beginning I would kind of under communicate and
Right.
shy away and hide
Mm.
and
Where do
feel
you think that
embarrassed.
comes from? Do you think it comes from your failures, or do you think it comes from like the confidence you build in succeeding and looking at whatever that success is and kind of repeating that process?
In regards to like taking ownership, you
Taking
mean?
ownership, or just like, maybe under communicating versus over communicating, working with your team. Like, how do you find that you move on to the next project? Is it by reflecting on your failures more than your successes, or looking at what you did right and kind of using that as a repeatable
I
process?
try to do both. Yeah.
Mm.
I think even like this weekend, we just had 3 events in 2 days, and Katie and I
Busy.
pow out. Yeah, we pow out on the phone, and I was like, first of all, the clients are extremely happy. Like
Mm.
we won in my eyes,
Right.
right? But then I'm also going to be like, okay, here's how it could have felt better for all of us. Like here's something I would do in hindsight, or we like talk through ways that I could have better communicated to certain team members just to make sure that they felt confident in what they were doing.
Right.
Um, I think feedback is the most important thing in life, and like that I hope and I always want and strive to like be open to feedback.
Yeah. Even when
The
it's
good
really
and the
hard.
bad, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think we need the bad more than the good,
I agree.
honestly.
Hmm.
So, um, I taught yoga for a while, and in my yoga training, it was sort of like a leadership development program too.
Okay.
And anyway, we implemented feedback all the time, and it made me get comfortable with like giving it also and
Mm.
taking it.
Mm.
And I don't think that we're always brought up with that. Like, feedback can put people in defense, and it used
Sure.
to make me feel like that. But now I think it's like our superpower. And if we
Mm.
really want to be excellent at something, we have to be willing to take it.
Right. I also think there's a balance between taking feedback and agreeing with all the feedback you get versus taking feedback and kind of internalize it and recognizing, is this feedback that I should actually consider,
Sure.
or or do I need to believe in what I'm doing, even though the feedback might not agree with it, but I see the longer term vision of what
Right.
I'm doing? So how do you kind of balance between the two of taking feedback, agreeing with it, or doing the thing versus I want to stick to my guns and believe what I'm doing?
Yeah, I want to get better at that
Mm.
actually. There's times where like I'll get creative feedback from a client, and then I take it
Mm.
and I implement it, and then I'm like later when the product comes out, I'm
Yeah.
like I should have stuck to my guns. So it's like sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes I'm bad at it.
Mm.
And I really get down on myself when I don't like listen to my gut in the beginning and
Right.
say like, no, this is what we're doing and this is why, you
Mm.
know? Um, cause yeah, that's the worst feeling when you like knew that you shouldn't say yes to something or change something, and then you're kind of like left to figure it out afterward.
Mm. I guess 9 years or 10 years into this, how important to you is listening to your gut?
Um, I feel like now more than ever, I think it's the most important thing.
Mm.
Um, and like trusting that that's real, and that like there's times where I knew I should like break up with a client. That's what I say, break up with them, or like just kind of say this isn't the right fit, and then I don't, and I'm like in something that doesn't feel good, and I'm like, this is I knew in the beginning I should have said no. So like saying no is can be hard.
Mm,
But it's also, again, it's a superpower. There's so many times. I don't think I've ever regretted saying no.
right.
I've regretted not saying no.
Yeah. I think I've regretted saying yes too
Right.
many times, but saying no is really challenging. And especially when you're in a business or a path or a career that is kind of job based and you don't have that structure maybe. And I I guess where I want to go with this is like, how do you find yourself willing to take on a job? Like, what type of commitment are you looking to have within a collaborator, within a client for you to say yes? And what are some things that you've learned that you kind of trust your gut and say, no, this isn't right for me at this point in time?
I think when, well, first of all, a job, like, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
I do, there is the aspect of like, we need to make money,
of course,
right?
of course.
So I think that I try to put boundaries up and create some form of like, not checklist, but like a structure to say, is this the right fit for us? Like, how creative can we be? I'm not going to execute something that's not at all my creative vision,
Mm,
right? Like, there has to be some bit of us being able to like interpret a creative like mood board or something and then create something of our own out of it. Um, that's a tough question.
yeah,
I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, I try to take work that makes me excited,
of course.
and then
Mhm.
it's not about money, right?
Mm,
And so
that's such
I
a hard
try to.
balance to
It's
find.
very
It's
hard.
really
It's like
difficult.
I try to lead with like, oh, I want to do this, and
Mm,
there's the creativity is what's leading this, and it's not necessarily about how much profit are we going to make off
of
of
course.
something.
Do you think your level of saying no has changed as you've grown? Like in the beginning,
Oh, I said
you
yes to
said yes.
everything.
So what is the importance of saying yes to everything?
In the beginning, I think there's a ton of importance in it. In that, like, you get to try things on and
Mm,
really try things on from like every perspective, right? Is I used to think that I wanted to be a set dresser for movies. Like,
mm.
I was like, I want to do feature films and I want to be on sets for films. And then I did one in New York and I was like, I don't like this at all. This is not what I expected. Like, um, and I had to try it on
Mm,
to know that, right? I'm not saying I would never want to do it. It just was like at the time, it's like not fitting for the lifestyle that I want.
mhm.
Um, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, there's times where like we get to lead. I would prefer to like lead creatively whatever projects we're working on, like have as much say in something as possible.
Definitely.
Um, but yeah, it's I'm still figuring that out,
I
I
think it's an
think.
important message though, because I have people have conversations, like I talk to people all the time and younger people that feel like they're not where they want to be in life already. They could be, early 20s and they're struggling. They're like, I wish I was doing that thing or, I feel lost. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's always kind of coming to that conversation of like, are you trying things out? Are
Mm-hmm.
you experiencing different avenues? Like you want to be in the film industry. You want to be, I don't know, a set dresser. You want to be a cinematographer, whatever it is. Of course, that might be your goal, but have you tried other things first? Have you learned other avenues in order for you to kind of get a better experience and just understand that one thing might not be for you, or you might find a passion in another thing?
Right.
So there's
That you didn't
something
even know was a
you didn't
thing.
even know was a
Right.
thing. Exactly.
I didn't know my job was a job until I started to work,
Right.
you know? Like, I wish someone told me that I didn't even understand really set dressing when
Mm,
I was in college. Like, I didn't know like the capacity to which like what went into
hmm.
film and sets, and I don't know. I feel like, and even within that, there's niches, right? Or like specific
Of
things
course.
that you might be really good at or excel at. And like, I think that trying things on is like the most important thing.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that I struggled a lot with, what do they call it? Something syndrome where you think,
Imposter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that was so hard. I remember like I would get a job and I like couldn't even accept that I got the job,
Mm,
you know?
mm,
I was like, I don't deserve this. Like, no one thinks I deserve this. I was so like mentally, I was just so like insecure about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I just hear that across the board from so many people I look
I
up
I
to
felt that.
too.
I still feel that to
Yeah,
this day. Yeah,
same.
absolutely. I don't.
Yeah, I have a
I
job this
yeah.
week that I'm like struggling with a little bit, and I'm like, that's just not real.
Mm,
I don't think it's real.
right. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that you can be literally anything that you want to be.
I
So
completely agree.
just
I think a lot of my career has been saying yes to things that I had no business saying yes to, but it's also finding certain jobs in that position where you maybe are stretching your comfort zone,
mhm.
but it pushes you out of your comfort zone to try new things and experience new things for you in order for you to grow. So I think the balance of the imposter syndrome is recognizing that this is a moment opportunity for you to take that next step or learn and find that new opportunity.
I think that it's so important to feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
And as soon as I feel too comfortable, I kind of feel like that's a red flag and it's time for
Mm,
me to try something on or even maybe just express myself creatively. Like
mm,
maybe I've been just playing it really safe. And um, I just think from a personal development standpoint, also like leadership. And for me, I always want to strive to be a better person, a better creative, a better leader, whatever. And in order to do that, I think we have to be stretched and pushed and uncomfortable,
mm.
like sitting on a
Right.
podcast
For
or
sure.
speaking in front of people
Hmm.
or hosting a dinner with your team and like literally just putting everything out there, like feedback or
Mm,
asking for feedback.
It's
That can
being,
sometimes feel,
yeah, I always say you have to be comfortable within the uncomfortable.
yeah,
And I find the same thing is that the uncomfortable really is tough to like manage sometimes. And like you wake up and you don't know when that next job is, you don't know when that next whatever is, but it's also kind of what fuels you to continue to pursue your thing. It continues to push you out of your comfort zone and continues to hopefully allow you to find new things about yourself and your business that you didn't otherwise know because you were living in that comfortable state where you start to become complacent with your work.
yeah. And that's like my biggest fear.
Being complacent.
Yeah, I don't
Mm,
want to ever feel like it's just another day and we're just gonna go through the routine. I think routine's healthy in some ways and well, in a lot of ways, I think structure can be really healthy. But I
mm,
think from a creative standpoint, I need to feel like a little bit of pressure. Or,
sure. Do you think you strive better under pressure than you would in a
yeah,
in a setting where there's no pressure?
100%.
Why
I
is
used
that?
to, I don't know, but like even I played soccer growing up,
Okay.
and like if I was chill,
Mm,
like if I was like, oh, we're gonna win, I played a horrible,
mm,
like awful game. And then the most nervous I'd be, I'd have like an incredible game.
right.
And I've known that since I was a kid. So I feel like I'm having an aha moment now,
Mm.
even that
Do you think
I
it
do
comes
like pressure.
do you think it comes from a place of like if you don't put your best foot forward or this pressure of this job and you do the best thing you possibly can, it might be your last?
Yeah, I feel like that.
Mm.
Yeah, all the
Do you feel that's a
time.
constant theme
But
of
that's
like any
not
job you
real.
do? Of course, it's not real, but
Um,
it is something that I feel like a lot of people think about, though, is like this might
100%.
be my last job, so I have to
I
do
think
the
I'm
best thing
gonna,
possible.
yeah, yes. I'd say like I have ongoing clients too that I've been with for years,
Mm,
and I'm always like, oh my god, like what if this is my last year with them?
right.
Or and it might be, and that happens sometimes too. Um, but yeah, I think it keeps me on my toes and it keeps me wanting to create like exceeding expectations.
Mhm. How do you find inspiration to continue to grow and find new creative ways to do something that maybe you've done before and it could be very easy for you to do that same thing? What are some ways that you find inspiration to grow?
Mm. Well, one thing is like I will not repeat, like rinse and repeat something,
Mm,
even like in events, right? Like there's sort of a makeup of events. Like, what does the table look like? What
sure.
does the flower look like? And I'll just, as soon as I start to feel like bored,
Mm,
like I'm not excited about it, I think that's like an indicator that I have to push it and change something up. Um, how do I find inspiration? Traveling, I feel like is huge for me. Like I can feel when I like need to get out of my surroundings.
Mm,
Like even if it's a day trip somewhere, just like a new restaurant or like a town that I think there's something in like, and maybe this is the discomfort thing too, is like not knowing where I am or like not being familiar with something
mm.
like excites me and gets me like,
Yeah, it gets you going. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then it makes me see things differently. Whereas like, you know, I might be like going down the street here or being in Philly and like I won't notice the typography on like a menu or something, but then I'm traveling and all of a sudden I'm like, I feel like things start to stand out and I'm like more present, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Mm,
Maybe it's about presence more
that's
than
interesting. Yeah.
traveling, or traveling is the means to get me present.
Mm,
Um, I think that's a big one for inspiration. Sometimes it's like not looking at anything creative and just like exercising and like getting into my body. And then again, I think it just comes back to being present.
right. That's a good point, though. Sometimes too much of a creative life can sometimes inhibit you from actually being creative.
1000%. Sometimes it's like overwhelming
Mm,
and I need to take a break because I'm
right.
like, even like being on social media, I'm like, sometimes it makes you feel like everything's been done and you're almost like fatigued by looking at so
Absolutely.
much. And I want to create from like a blank slate more than like from seeing someone else's work,
Mm,
right? I'm always inspired by other people's work. Whether it's like it could be film and then I'm translating that into a table,
of course.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes I need to like completely like just take a break from everything I'm doing, take a
Mm.
day off and not do anything creative.
I'd love to know about your days off. Do you ever feel like you actually take a day off?
No,
Mm.
no. Um, that's a huge misconception too, I think, for like, or that I learned on my own. Like I thought that I've gained so much freedom, right?
Yeah, but
Through
there's not that much for you.
not so much freedom.
Yeah.
Like I've gained a certain type of freedom
Mm,
through being an entrepreneur, but I work way more than I thought,
right.
you know, but I love it. Like I would do
Mm,
it anyway.
mm.
That's the difference is like
That's a
I would
huge
do
difference.
all of the work that I do. I would do it anyway. I
Right.
would make up a reason to do it
Mm,
if I wasn't paid to do it. So, but I have a very hard time disconnecting.
mm,
That I would say that's like one of my biggest struggles is like really letting work stay
mm,
at work. Um, I have a studio now, so I have a physical place to go to.
mm.
But it's very hard for me to come home and like just shut off. And also sometimes I'm like laying in bed and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's what we have to do. Like
Yeah.
last night I woke up in the middle of the night. I'm like, did I order this or what if we do this instead? Like I can't help when those things come.
Mm,
Um, so it can be really hard to take time off. But
mm.
again, I'll travel just so that I physically can't go
Right.
into
Do you find that even in moments of travel, you're always thinking about?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I love that aspect of it. I think
Mm,
that I don't do a great job at disconnecting. I could be better and I hope that I will get better
mm.
over time, but I also like live like I said I love like going to Europe and like just sitting down at a cafe and then all of a sudden I'm like wow, like
Yeah.
there's so much texture here or something inspires me and that's exciting to me.
I do feel like there is a misconception sometimes that people feel that they need to 100% disconnect always in order to be refueled. And I agree to an extent, but for me, I have found similarly that my freedom is different. My freedom is my choice in wanting to do or not do something,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much the freedom. But my time is always spent working on something no matter what.
Yeah.
And I do find enjoyment and fulfillment in doing that. And I always feel that when I'm not doing that thing, maybe I'm missing something, or am I missing out on a job potentially, or am I missing out on a creative thought that I could be pursuing? So that's always an ongoing battle. Like, is it bad that I can't disconnect, or is it just part of what I'm doing and part of who I am and
Right.
what I need to do in order to succeed
Right.
potentially?
Yeah, I used to that's a really like thank you for even saying that
Mm,
because sometimes I feel guilty because not everyone is that way.
right.
And then they'll be like, you really need to chill. And I'm like, but I am chill.
Yeah.
Like, I like this. Like, I don't know. I think of short films. I'm not a filmmaker, but like, I'll be like, just last night I thought of like a hilarious, funny skit and I was like, I write them down
Mm.
I don't know. It just, things come to me, and I think that that's so exciting, and like that is part of me and why I do what I do,
It's
right?
just
And it's part of
I feel
you. It's
exactly.
like,
It's like a need to feel like you just need to express yourself
yes, I
and let
have to
things
create
out.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like even just writing down a short film idea. Am I
Might
gonna
not go
ever
anywhere.
execute it? I
Yeah.
don't know. Like maybe like when I'm older, I'll start making short films.
You start directing next.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. um, but I have like a kids book idea.
Mm,
I have multiple kids books ideas, and I'm like, yeah, one day I'm gonna do that. It's not
mm,
right now, but I like need to express myself
right.
creatively,
You
and
said
it
children
looks
books, which is
different.
funny. I would love to. I have a passion that nobody knows about of writing, which I want to
Well,
be
that
an
makes
author. I
sense.
want to be an author, actually. I want to write books. Um, eventually, not now because
Yeah.
I have so much
Yeah,
going on,
same.
but eventually I would really love to be an author of books,
Me too.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't write films. I don't think I could be a screenplay or anything
Right.
like that, but just like I love reading and just stories and stuff. And, maybe one day I'll write a book
Yeah.
one day.
I feel like the world is our oyster.
Mm,
And I'll never say that I won't do something because I might. And that's like the best part of life to me.
yeah.
It's like we get to just wake up and do what we want in a lot of ways. Like, right? I don't have a lot of freedom because I'm so busy because I made a choice to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, of
Right.
course.
And in that is its freedom, right? It's like,
Mm,
like you said, that is why, that is what drove me,
right.
is that I want to have choice. I want
Mm.
to have choice in like what my life looks like.
I think something deeper inside of that is the idea of the balance between dedication and being selfish. And I think as a business owner or someone that is pursuing a creative path that requires a lot of your time, energy, and effort, you have to have a level of being selfish in order to actually go and do that thing well and at a high level. But that also means that you're really dedicated to your craft and your business. And to do those two things means that you are potentially sacrificing relationships
Yeah.
with friends, family,
Hmm.
your significant other, or just going out and having fun or whatever that case may be. Did you find when you were starting your business and even to where you are now, those two things of dedication and kind of being selfish are very prevalent in your balance of, maintaining
Yeah.
relationships?
100%. I honestly wish I was a little more firm
Mm,
in my relationships and friendships while I was starting, um, because I wish I dedicated even more time. Although I did, I was like, I say that, and then at the same time, there was so many times where my friends would be like, "Can you just put your laptop away?" And
mm,
I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. Like,
yeah.
I'm not hanging out at all because I want to be doing this.
Hmm.
And I should have just told you that I'm gonna go work and save. Like, I wish I was a little bit better about boundaries. Like in
Mm,
every relationship I have, even like my mom. When I first started out, I had a very hard time saying no. I had a hard time putting my laptop away. I just always felt like there was more I could be doing. But then looking back now, I'm like, wow, I did that and it got me where I am. So
absolutely.
I don't regret that by
Mm,
any means. I think I could have communicated a little
mm.
bit better with the people around me.
But
And
you learn, and it's like a season of your life where
yeah,
maybe in the beginning you did need to actually dedicate way
100%.
more time to your business.
Yeah. I was talking about this last night with Alec. I'm like, I work smarter now
Mm,
and I accomplish just as much, but it just feels like easier.
right.
Like then I'd be like, I'm Ubering to a meeting and I have my laptop with my hotspot and I'm like literally like sending emails and I go to the meeting and I get back on and I'm doing it again and I'm like, I could have just handled it better, but also like, yeah, hell yeah. I was young and
Mhm.
like just fired up and I got so much done and I met so many people and um I wouldn't like take it back, but yeah, I learned now. I'm a little bit better
Right.
about it.
With dedication and, uh, you know, s- uh, being selfish, there's also another element of like being really focused as well. And I know that you do a bunch of different things. And as you say, now that you are better at kind of maybe delegating potentially, are there moments like when I first saw you today, you were really busy. You said you have a big project coming up.
Hmm.
How do you how many jobs for you is too many for you that you start to realize that I'm not really focusing or I'm not giving like 100% to something? Like, do
Yeah.
you find the struggle of focus sometimes?
It's like feast or famine sometimes, it
Mm,
feels like. All of a sudden, I go from which is totally not even like I'm gonna I think things that are not like I shouldn't think them. But like Katie knows, like 2 months ago, I was like, oh my God, the fall looks like I've got nothing lined up. And literally in like 3 days, the fall's
Yeah,
done
completely. Yeah.
completely. Like I can't say yes to anything else
Mm,
unless it's like very well managed.
mm.
Um, and how much is too much? That's really hard. I'm still, to be honest, just like trying to figure that out. Um, Katie works for me on project to project. I have someone working right now at the studio. She's spray painting,
Nice.
and just went and got a bunch of paints. And so I think like my younger self would have uh, maybe not like delegated as much as I do now. And I've learned how important it is to like just let other people do it.
Mm,
And like, it's hard for me to let go of control sometimes or
right.
like not be like right next to the person while they're doing something. So I can kind of like monitor what's going on. But like that's like learning and growing too now. Like I've got a bunch of freelancers that are awesome and want to
Right.
be creative and they want hours and they want to work. And so delegating has been major.
Mm,
And I think my goal is to have more of a full-time crew
sure.
so that we can take on little things and big things and always have things going. Um, so I don't know. I don't know what the too much is but I know how I feel inside when it's too much. And it's usually because I haven't delegated or given the proper like timeline to my client.
Yeah.
Clients, like you think like the bigger the client that you're going to have all this lead time and like,
It's usually the
and
opposite.
it's literally the opposite.
Yeah.
So like I'll have this project that like, it's not cloudy or I don't know.
Mm,
It's not something like so exciting or whatever. And it's so well managed and we have the proper amount of time and budget. And then I have these other projects that are like dream projects and they come in and they like take all the energy and time and they have to be done in a week.
mm,
And that can be really hard because I don't want to say no to those because it's
right.
like what drives me and it's passion.
Mm,
But yeah, it's always an ebb and flow of like, I still have a hard time trying, saying,
absolutely.
do we say yes to this? Do we have
Mm,
enough time?
mm,
And I always, when I'm excited, I want to say yes and I want to do it.
mm.
So
Do you have anyone around you that you confer to with those decisions, or do you find that you are kind of like in this solo boat sometimes that you have to make these tough decisions and you're unsure about if this is the right decision or not?
I do have people I could,
Mm,
and I don't like reach out.
mm,
And that's actually a really good point. I have friends that I trust that I could call and they'd be like, Liz, you're really excited about it, but it's not that big of a deal.
sure.
And maybe you should say
Mm.
no.
Do you struggle with taking advice sometimes?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Yes and no. It depends on what it is. Like, it depends on what it is. I can be very stubborn though. And when I have an idea about something, I'm very excited and then like I think it's going to be one way and then I just have blinders on
right.
except for that thing. Um so yeah, I can struggle with that sometimes.
Mm. What do you think you're most proud of about yourself as you've grown a bunch of these different businesses? It could be something you're proud of as a business owner, or it could be something you're proud of as Liz as a human being.
Hmm. Wow. Um well, I'm proud of myself for just doing it. Like I
Mm,
did not have I can't believe it sometimes. Like I don't believe in my life also. Not that I have this like most incredible life ever, but like I was not set up to become and do what I did. Like I was very insecure. I didn't have money growing up. We lived sort of, like I said, my mom was a single mom. It was kind of feast or famine
mm,
too, like in the way that I grew up. And my mom isn't the most confident person, even in herself, and she's incredible. And I think I saw that in her, and I was like, I don't want to live like not knowing how great I could be at something,
mm,
and that powered me. But it was so hard, and I cried so much and I was so uncomfortable for so many years. And I have so much more confidence now, um, that I'm proud of that. Like, even just,
Mhm.
I'm proud that I started. I'm proud that I'm still going.
Right.
um, and yeah, I didn't have like the easiest road to get where I am now, but like my mom, even sometimes she's like, I can't believe
Yeah.
that this is you now, because I was like the one hiding behind my mom, and
Mm.
like really afraid, to like let people see me, or yeah. So I'm proud of
Yeah.
that.
What do you think helped develop your confidence?
Um, my yoga training that I went through
Mm.
was big. I had to like do a lot of that was sort of, like I said, a leadership program where it kind of highlighted your insecurities and your not weaknesses, but like it made you realize how much you were like hiding from your life,
Mm.
really, like how much you were inhibiting your own life. And it made me take ownership over my life, right? And like really realize that it's up to me, that if I want to be a certain type of person, or if I want to own a certain type of thing, I need to be doing these things that make me uncomfortable.
Mm.
And like we had said before, like that's my inner knowing is like, when it feels uncomfortable, I have to do it.
Right.
And doing those hard things made me gain confidence,
Mm.
100%. Like, even today, I feel more confident in just having been able to
Absolutely.
sit and do this.
Yeah.
Um, and then hopefully I'll be able to do another one or whatever, or
Definitely.
speak
I
in
mean,
front of
I
more
get nervous
people.
every time I do these still too.
Yeah.
But it gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier. But I also think that having some nerves is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's healthy.
It's a muscle too. It's like
Mm.
working out. Like, the more you do it, the less it feels so heavy and hard.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
You talked about kind of believing in God a little bit.
hmm
How much and how important is faith through your process of growing, and especially in times of insecurity or times of failure, you think you're not going to make it?
It's everything to me, I
Mm.
think. And I should have said that, actually. I was going to, and then I got sidetracked.
Mm.
But literally, like, the confidence thing, like, before I would teach yoga, I would go in the bathroom and I would just like start praying and be like, God, like, use my hands, my mouth, like my feet, just use me right now. I'm going to go and teach this class. Whatever I say is coming from you. Like, and then I just let it go.
Mm.
Yeah, I prayed before this too.
Mm.
um, yeah, it's everything. I think like my relationship with God is, it's also that like intuition that we talked about. That's just, to me, that's the voice, and that's where it comes from. And I use it in every day, every decision I make.
Mm. Did you grow up having this relationship with God, or is this something you found later in life?
No, I grew up with
Mm.
it in my life. I grew up in church with my mom. My mom um, is a she's a believer, and she literally, like, I spent probably 5 days out of 7 days in church.
Mm.
Um, but my mom's relationship with God is different than even what I learned in church. Like, I would say that watching my mom's relationship with God is what made me have such a deep relationship with God, because I understood it through her more than I could through my church, even.
Mm.
Like, I love my church and I love the way I was brought up, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that my church is about. But my mom always like prayed and brought God into everything. She still does.
Mm. I love that.
And gives, God the glory in everything that has gotten her to where she is. We didn't have like a she didn't have an easy life either. And she attributes a lot of like us getting to where we are from God. So
Mm.
it's always been in me, and I think that I've always been able to use that relationship, and it 100% is what like guides me still.
Amazing.
And that I will, and I hope that I always have that, and like will use that. Even like, I might not always be an entrepreneur, I might not always be a creative,
Mm.
and like I believe that when, if that were to be the case, it'd be because I wasn't supposed to be,
Right.
like it's
So
not divinely
mm,
for
maybe
me.
I'm kind of just thinking back to what you said of almost like when I asked you, do you have people to help confer in some of those decisions, do you find that you praying is almost having that person to
Yeah.
ask to help you with those decisions?
Yeah, 100%. I can't always I would say that like I sometimes need time to like hear the answer,
Mm,
right? Like, and I might not always have the time to like wait for
of course.
it,
Yeah.
right? Or feel the confidence in making the decision. But again, I just think that like what's meant for me is always is here for me, and that like when I make a decision that might not have been the best decision, it's meant to be also,
Mm,
because I learned again,
mm,
or it's strengthening me to like know that I need to listen to my intuition more,
right.
right?
Mm,
Everything's like learning,
mm.
I think.
You're so focused on your career and like your business and growing it. Do you ever, what are your thoughts on having a family? Because that's something that is like a very prevalent topic in my
Whew.
life
Yeah.
because of how focused I am on my career and how much I travel and work and like, not tuning out sometimes and like I should not be working mentally, but I'm there.
Hmm.
If you wanted to have a family or if you want to have a family, is that something that you've thought of how you're going to maybe adapt or adjust?
I think about it every day. It's
Mm,
crazy. Especially now. That's been like the theme in my life, I think, in the last year or so. I'm getting older, and it's like the sad part is that that is like a conversation that I have to have as a woman.
yeah.
Um, and I was so focused when I started my career on work that that was, of course, not of course, but I've always pictured myself to be a mom, and I think I'll be a great mom. I hope that
I
I'll be
think
a
so.
mom. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have such a great relationship with my mom that I'm like, I can't wait to be able
I
to
love
give
that.
that to a child.
Mm,
So I want that deeply. And at the same time, I love my career and I am so dedicated to it. And the thought of not having it also scares me.
right.
Or not having the time for it, or
Of
like
course.
not sleeping. um, so that's been like that's been something that's been on my mind a
Mm.
lot. And then I'm also like, all of my friends just had children. So it's
You
been
get
like,
baby
it's like that
fever?
season, sort of. Yeah. Like I do and I don't.
Right.
But I have like science is science. Like I have a
Mm,
clock, sort of, like I think I have to start being a little more realistic about my timeline.
mm,
So that's why this year I started to like really think about it, and I do want it, and I look up to other women that I see. Like there's women that have multiple children and they're CEOs of
of
companies,
course.
multiple
Mhm.
companies. So I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. When the time is right, I'll have a family.
Mm,
But I would be lying if I didn't say like it's something that I think about and it scares me.
yeah,
It's like such a huge shift. I've been blessed to be able to just do what I want and
of course.
take on as much as I want. And
Mm.
the idea of having to say no to like some dream project scares me, but I think like it'll be worth it, right? Like
I
in my opinion, I'm like I care so much about family. It's like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
one of the biggest things in my life. So to have my own, I'm sure that like I won't feel the same way
Mhm.
about those dream projects if I have a family at home.
I wonder the same thing because I think part of who I am obviously has to do with my career, but it's also I know like deeply inside of me that I want to be a father.
Hmm.
Um, because I've had a very interesting relationship with my father where it's changed throughout my life. At one point in time it was one thing, and as I've gotten older, it's become something much deeper. And like I have a really great relationship with him, and I have relationships with other older men who I look up as father figures, and they've played such a role and impact in my life that, and also I have a wife who I've known since we were 15, and I look at her and I'm like, I can't wait for you to
Yeah.
like be a mom, and it's like really exciting for me, and it makes me happy to think about things like that. But at the same time, I'm like, is this going to inhibit something else that I'm really passionate about, my career? And at this point in my life, career takes precedent over
Yeah.
a lot of things. But that doesn't mean that at a certain point, my perception of what success looks like is going to change once I have a family. Because right now, success for me is a successful career,
Right.
like a profound career. But when I have a kid, maybe that idea of success changes.
Right. I know, and that scares me a little bit.
Mm,
I'm like scared because I could so see myself being like that, like, oh, whatever, my kid's more important than that,
yeah.
and that should be how it is, right? But just the idea of that shift is scary. That's
Hmm.
such a change. My whole life has been, not my whole life, but the last 10 years has been so like focused on my career and hitting those milestones and like these goals. So the idea of like shifting mentally into that thought process also scares me. But I mean, everything in time, like its own time, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so many people have children, and yes, it might take like a couple years of shifts and changes, but then you still have your career and you can have your
You'll
career and your
adapt.
family.
Yeah. I think it's about adapting. It's just about recognizing that maybe your kids aren't necessarily like inhibiting you from doing anything, but it's just a matter of how you can adapt and change for them to be, um, what is the word?
Integrated, like,
Integrated
yeah,
into what you actually want to do.
yeah,
Mm,
which is exciting.
I think it is.
Yeah.
So I think this was great. I have one last question for you. Where you are right now, sitting in that chair at this point in your career, is sitting across from that version of Liz that just quit her job at the bowling alley. What
Oh,
advice would you give that version of you?
oh, that's making me emotional. um, oh my God. What advice? That's so hard. I just want to like hug her and be like, "You go, girl.
That's
That
like
was
that.
amazing." Like, wow. The fact that I did that, I still can't believe it. Like, I don't know that I'm even that person now. I think I am, but like, I'm so mind blown by that person. Like, that takes so much guts.
Mm,
So I would just be like, "You go, girl."
love that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Where can people find you, your business? Feel
You
free.
can find us or me on Instagram. My handle's at Barrella. And then through that, you'll be able to find all the other things.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I really enjoyed this a
Me
lot.
too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Peace out.